Chapter 12. To be physical about it, water is amazing. Human beings are over 80% water, and the surface of the earth is nearly 70%. From outer space, it looks like just a drop of water. To be economical about it, most things that are precious, like gold or jewels, are precious because they're in short supply. There's more water than there is almost anything else, but it's still more precious than gold. So precious that some people in dry areas are prepared to spend most of the day just fetching and carrying it. In some countries, the women set out at 3 or 4 o'clock every morning to collect water so that they can be back in time to begin the day. No one would do that for gold. And gold or jewels are still valuable if they're not quite right. It's not the same with water. To be chemical about it, if water's got the wrong amount of salt in it or toxins, you can die of thirst next to an ocean full of it. If you can give people enough water, you can change their lives. If those women didn't have to leave their villages so early in the morning, imagine how much more time they'd have to spend with their children or just being asleep. If you can get even a little bit of water onto a farm, you can grow maize and keep chickens and have just enough to eat. But if you can get a lot of water onto that same farm, you could grow peas, bananas, pineapples, mangoes, sweet potatoes, eucalyptus trees, you name it, and make money and send your children to school and never be poor again. I could see it in my mind, a trail of water running across the desert, and all around it green shoots shooting and leaves spreading, and grass waving and fruit getting fatter and fatter, and the whole desert coming to life like a page in a colouring book. Then I woke up and found that I'd wet myself. I haven't done that since Mum was in the best place. Luckily, Dad had already gone to work and Anthony was still asleep. I stripped the bed and washed the sheets on the 40 setting, along with some towels and my pyjamas. I tried to think of it all as mortification, but by the time I pressed the start button, I felt like going back to bed. I couldn't because there was no bedding, and anyway, it was a school day. I'm really glad I didn't too, because that was the day I first saw Dorothy. I think I might have seen her before anyone else did. I was hanging up my coat and she went by, chatting to Mr. Quinn. She had her hair in cornrows like Gemma, and she wore a smart jacket like the ladies on the makeup counter. She was carrying a little flip-top bin. When the whistle went, we were all told to go to the hall instead of our classrooms, as someone was coming to give us a special assembly. "In classes and in silence, please," said Mr. James, the head teacher. He was wearing his reindeer tie. We were shuffling into our lines when suddenly there was a scream from the Year 5 row. Everyone was standing on their toes and pushing forward, trying to see what was going on. Mr. James said, Everybody, just take a step back and then everyone can see." He winked at the smart lady who was on the stage with him now. Everyone made a big circle, and there in the middle of the circle was Shumita and the little flip-top bin I'd seen earlier. It didn't seem that interesting until the flip-top flipped open and a voice came out. It said, "So, what's your name?" "Oh my God," said Shumita. "Hello? Oh my God," said the bin, and everyone laughed. "Shumita, my name's Shumita." "I like your pigtail, Shumita," said the bin. "Oh, how bad is that? It can see me. How can it see me?" "Don't be alarmed, I come in peace." It had a nice, soft voice. One of the Year 6s barged past her to get a better look. The bin said, "No pushing, please, no pushing." "I'm enjoying this," said the Year 6. "What's your name?" said the bin. "How's it doing it?" "How do you know how's it doing it?" I looked back towards the stage. Mr. James was grinning all over his face. The smart lady seemed to be talking quietly to herself. She had her finger in her ear, and she was holding something that looked like a pen quite close to her mouth. I don't want to be cynical about it, but I knew it was her working the bin, that it was her voice we were listening to. She tucked the pen-shaped thing into her pocket and asked Shamita to bring her the bin. Everyone went quiet, expecting her to explain it. Instead, she shouted, "Who cares about poor people?" I couldn't believe it. My hand shot up. So did everyone else's, which means that not everyone is completely honest. She started to tell us about the euro and the changeover. She wanted to know how much a pound was worth in euros. Everyone knew. Then she wanted to know how much 2p was worth. No one's hand went up for a while. She said, "I'll tell you, it's worth not very much." "But how many people are here? Let's count, shall we?" She started pointing at people and counting them off. When she got to 13, she said, "I'm sure I've counted you twice." And Mr. James said, "It's 368. At this assembly, there's 368. "Thank you, sir. So what is 368 times 2? I put up my hand because I wanted to be the one to tell her. She pointed at me and I realised I didn't actually know the answer. It was our Anthony who said, "It's 736. That's right, £7 and 36p, which in euros is €10 and 37 cents. Now, that's still not very much here, but in Ethiopia, that will buy you a bag of seed corn that could see a family through the autumn. Imagine that. That's just 2p each. Now, what would happen if you gave me 4p each? How much would I have?" I put up my hand again and said, €20 and 74 cents. "Perfect. Here, this is for you." And she held out a yellow plastic currency converter shaped like the Euro duck. I had to walk up to the stage to collect it from her. She carried on talking but ruffled my hair as I walked back to my place. "But what if you each gave me €7.50 from now till the end of term? Could we do that? I bet we could build a well." I shouted yes. She looked across at me and smiled. "Well, someone thinks that's a good idea," she said, "and I'm not surprised." She rubbed my hair again as she strolled past me and started telling everyone all sorts of things about wells, which I already knew. I just kept nodding all the time she was talking. She said, "When we change over, you won't get much for your small change, but it could mean a lot to other people. It's no good to you, so chuck it in the bin." People started piling 5p's and 2p's into the bin just to hear it say, "Thank you. Is that all? Come on, you must have a bit more." As I went past the bin, it said, "What about you then? What's your name?" I said, "Damien." "Got any money for me, Damien?" I nodded and looked up at her. She was looking right at me, trying not to let anyone else see. I put all the money that was in my pocket into the bin. Then I looked up at her. She winked at me and the bin moved off. Anthony came up behind me and whispered, What did you just do?" "Same as everyone else. I put money in the bin." "How much money?" "Just what I had on me." "Which was?" "A couple of grand, maybe 3. £3? What did you bring £3 to school for?" "In case, you wouldn't understand." "Can't you see that's suspicious?" "It's not suspicious. It's not unusual, but it's not suspicious." "How can it be suspicious? It's our money," I said. Anthony looked at me long and hard. "Okay," he said. It's time you knew the truth." When we got home, Anthony showed me a site he'd bookmarked. It's one of his favourites. It gives all the world news, but with a financial slant. So if it was covering the Olympics, it would tell you how much 3 gold medals were worth. In the archive section, there was a picture of a train. Underneath it, it said, "Tons of money." "Click on it," said Anthony. "What for?" I replied. "You'll see what for." This is what came up. Sadly for most of us, the phrase "tons of money" is just a figure of speech. But yesterday, thieves made off with literally tons of money in used high denomination sterling notes earmarked for destruction in the government incinerator near Warrington. The robbery was planned with military precision and a relatively low capital outlay. The final haul could be worth something in the region of £6 million. Links. Brilliant robberies of history. Click here. What would you do with tons of money? Message board. Click here. I said, "What has this got to do with us?" "Read on," said Anthony. How to lose 6 million. Countdown to that super raid. Last updated the 1st of December at 7 a.m. From 4 o'clock. Traffic finder, personnel and transport police secure platform 1 at King's Cross and begin loading 12.5 tons of paper sterling onto a freight train. The money is marked for the incinerator as part of the big switchover to the euro on the 17th of December. 6:55. Train is fully laden and ready to depart. Operators are told there will be no rail track departure slots until 8 o'clock. Railway track charge for clearing King's Cross Warrington route €70,000. 7:05. A van bearing the official rail track mark appears at one of the end of the platform. The van was a 3-year-old Ford Rascal. Click here for www.ford.co.uk for the best deals on vans and saloons. 7:07. Van drives at full speed towards security guards. Guards scatter and 10 men in replica Newcastle United shirts, recommended retail price €49.99, and balaclavas leap out and begin laying them with baseball bats, gaining access to the body of the train. Click here for toonarmyshop.com, premier suppliers of Newcastle United official merchandising, replica kits and programmes. Click here for QuickTime movie file, CCTV footage of violent incident. Requires QuickTime 5 or later. By 7:12, transport police, dog handlers and an armed rapid reaction unit were on the scene. The robbers return to the van and drive off at speed with a reckless disregard for life. They had been on the train for only 90 seconds. Security ascertains that only one sealed packet of notes was missing. Link. To view TV footage of police statement requires QuickTime 5 or later. Click here. From 7:16, the van is pursued by the police. It is quickly abandoned in a city side street, the robbers making their getaway on foot. The police give chase as far as Norfolk Road, but here it becomes clear why the robbers had chosen this day and this location. Last night, the Arsenal versus Manchester United Premiership clash. Attendance 39,000 at average spend of €40. The street is thronged with Newcastle fans, many thousand wearing replica shirts identified to those worn by the robbers, who simply melt into the crowd. 7:40. Transport police return to abandoned vehicle to discover the missing packet of money, £50,000, is still in the back of the van. This is returned to King's Cross. 11:50. The train is finally cleared for departure. It looked as though the robbery had been foiled. This was at the bottom of the page. I said, "Okay, I've read it. So what?" Then Anthony scrolled down a bit further for me. 1st of December. The train arrives at the depot and the real nature of the robbery is discovered. The violent incident at the station was not a robbery at all, but simply a distraction. 10 robbers had jumped onto the train, but only 9 had escaped in the van. One member of the gang remained hidden amongst the pallets of cash. As soon as the train moved off, he began his work of ripping open the packets and stuffing money into dozens of JJB Sports holdalls. Whenever the train slowed down for a bend, he threw out a bag of cash. Each bag contained something in the region of £250,000. At each bend, a member of the gang was waiting to retrieve the bag. Between King's Cross and Warrington, something in the region of 6 million was flung from the train. On the journey, the robber changed out of his Newcastle shirt and into an official track-finding overall. On arrival, he mingled with the porters and forklift operators as they unloaded the train, taking the first opportunity to exit the station. The division of the money in relatively small amounts means it should be easy to change into euros. Before the switchover, a bag left unrecovered near New Eton was found this morning, providing a vital clue in the reconstruction of the story. Other drops were very likely near Crewe, Stafford, Penkridge and Watford, amongst other places. Links. For a map of the journey, including slow bends, click here. Your chance to find a bag of cash, click here. Anthony had been reading it over my shoulder. He was smiling. You have to hand it to them, he said. Hand what to them? I said. Well, it was brilliant, wasn't it? 6 million in unmarked notes, completely undetectable. No one was even hurt, and the money was going to be burnt anyway. So it wasn't even a robbery at all, in one way. It was more like recycling. At first, I couldn't think of anything to say. Then I said, Shut up. What? He said. What did you have to go and do that for? Why couldn't you keep it to yourself? Damien. I saw it, I said. I saw it. It fell out the sky. You saw it fall off the back of the train, Anthony said. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Why did you have to tell me? Because, Anthony said, you need to know. Because the people who did this, they're dangerous. They dropped the money all over the country, so there must be dozens of them. If one of them was supposed to collect a bag and got there late, what would happen then? Someone else might have found it. Someone like you? Do you think they'd just say, oh dear, never mind? Or do you think they'd go looking for it? They'd come looking for it, Damien, looking for you, and they could be anyone. A man with a glass eye, a woman with cornrows, some people with funny accents and unfeasibly white shirts. You've got to be careful. They want their money back and they want it quick. They've only got a few days left to change it. I thought that it had come from God. What? Said Anthony. Who else would have that much cash? Well, maybe it did after all. God does move in mysterious ways. He does not rob banks, I said. God does not rob banks, all right? Whenever things got theological, Anthony stops listening. He just says, well, if he didn't, who did? Just think about that. On Monday morning during numeracy hour, Mr. James came into our class, which he never normally does. He made us put down our pencils and look at him. He looked very serious. Last week, Mr. James said, you may recall a lady came to the school on behalf of Change for Change. She's here with me now, and she's got something she wants to ask you. I want you to listen politely and to answer her questions honestly. He opened the door and the smart lady came in. Mr. James stood next to her while she was talking, staring at us one by one. On Friday, she said, I asked you to give your change and you and you responded generously, very generously. But one person gave a big donation, a worryingly big donation to be honest, and we just need to know where that donation came from so that we know it's, well, legal really. So if the person who made that donation could come forward, that would be great. I was about to put my hand up and say it was me when Tricia jumped out of her seat and said it was her. Mr. James looked at her. How much did you put in, Tricia, if you don't mind me asking? I put in £10, she said. Well, said the smart lady, that was very kind of you, but Mr. James butted in. Where did you get £10 from, Tricia? She turned her head towards me a little bit and she said, I sold something, sir, and then when the lady told us about the water, I just wanted to do something. Sorry, sir. Don't be silly, he said. What you did was excellent. Really well done. She never mentioned that what she'd sold was a drawing of 2 horses with some mountains in the background and no saddles for £100. That's not what we're looking for, he said, and he looked around the class. I think it would be best for whoever did this to come to my office anytime today. As I said, we just need to know where it came from. And he left. All through numeracy hour, I thought about what I was going to say. By the time the bell went for small play, I had it all worked out. I went straight into Mr. James's office practicing my speech. We didn't know it was stolen, I was going to say. We want to give it to the poor. The government wants to burn it just because it's old, which is wicked. Okay, so it's a bit tatty, some of it, but nothing a bit of sellotape wouldn't fix. And the poor people of this world don't care what money looks like. I wasn't sure about the sellotape. I didn't think that was entirely necessary. I was trying to decide when I realised that someone had got there before me. A surprising person. Our Anthony. What are you doing here? I whispered. I knew you'd tell them. I wasn't going to let you do it on your own. I've got interests to protect here. Before I could argue back, Mr. James opened the door and called us in and told us to sit down. I've never been into Mr. James's office before. You have to be really bad to go in there. There's a clock on the wall with the numbers going round the wrong way. The hands go round the wrong way too. You think that if you looked at it long enough, it gives you the feeling that time could go backwards? It doesn't work like that, though. It makes you feel like time is coming at you from all directions. Okay, said Mr. James. The Cunningham brothers, eh? What do you want to tell me? I said, Anthony said, we made the big donation to Change for Change. I did, I said. It wasn't actually me, but it was both our money. I'm sure it was. It's just, well, if you don't mind me asking, where exactly did you get the money? I started, well, at first I thought it had just fallen from but before I got any further, Anthony said, stole it. Mr. James stared. Anthony said, we stole it from one of our neighbours. Neighbours? Mr. James said, don't say any more. Then he held up his hand to stop us from talking and phoned Dad. Mr. Cunningham, I think you'd better come to the school if that's possible. We have a situation.